Good evening, and thank you for attending. My name is Denise McKelvey, and I am your moderator for this evening's candidate debate. Before we begin, please silence all phones and electronic devices. Additionally, please refrain from any interruptions to the debate, as it is being recorded for on-demand viewing and post-captioning services. The Citizens Clean Election Commission is the sponsor for this evening's event. The Clean Elections Act is a campaign finance reform and public education measure introduced and initiated by Arizona citizens and passed by the voters in 1998. The Clean Elections Act was created to allow campaigns to be more issue-oriented and less negative. The system provides full funding for qualified candidates who participate voluntarily. The candidates agree to abide by the Clean Elections Act and rules, which include contribution and spending limits, foregoing special interest money, as well as participating in commission debates. The candidates invited this evening are in contested general elections. Candidates in uncontested general elections are not included in the debate process. For tonight's debate, questions have been prepared by Clean Elections based on a voter survey, as well as questions that have been submitted through the Clean Elections smartphone app. However, we encourage live audience questions first. If you have questions, please print them clearly on the note cards given to you when you entered and hold them up. Our volunteer will pick up the cards and deliver them to me. If you need additional cards, just raise your hand. We do screen the questions for clarity to eliminate duplication, speeches, or personal attacks on candidates. The debate is scheduled for 90 minutes, and we got a lot of questions, so we may not get to all the audience questions, but we will do our best. There's an independent timer who will see to it that all the candidates have their allotted time to answer questions and will tell them when their time is up. As a courtesy to the other candidates, please respect the time limits. When the timer raises the stop sign, the moderator will stop the candidate. Tonight's debate includes 1 minute each for opening statements. Then we'll have a quick lightning round. The first half of the debate begins with 2 minutes to answer audience questions, and each candidate will answer the same audience question, and we will rotate which candidate responds first. After all the candidates have responded, the first responding candidate will be given an additional 30 seconds. The second half of the debate will allow a different question for each candidate. They will have 1 minute to answer that question. If you have a question for a specific candidate, please include the candidate's name on the note card. It will be considered during the second half of the debate. Then finally, we will end the program with 1 minute closing statements. We ask you to please remain polite to all the candidates and give them a fair and uninterrupted hearing, no matter how strongly you may agree or disagree with anything being said. Tonight's participants are running for office in District 11. Our candidates are Mr. Ralph Achu, Democrat. He's a traditional candidate running for state senator. Mr. Steve Smith, Republican, traditional candidate running for state senator. Mr. Mark Fincham, Republican, traditional candidate running for state representative. Ms. Corin Hammond, Democrat. She is a Clean Elections candidate running for state representative. And Mr. Vince Leach, Republican, traditional candidate running for state representative. The order in which the candidates will speak has been determined by alphabetical order by last name, starting with the Senate for opening comments, and will progress from that starting point. The order for the second half will be determined by a reverse alphabetical order by last name, starting with the House. Okay, Mr. Achu, will you start the opening remarks, please?
Thank you. My opponent's been in the state legislature since 2010, and here's just a little bit of what he's been up to. He's blocked audits that are designed to help us take care of taxpayers. He has spent millions of dollars, wasted millions of dollars of taxpayer money fighting the will of the voters on issues that then they ignore the court decisions on. They've actually changed the definition of conflict of interest and allowed one of their cronies to be appointed to the board that decides your electric bill rate. Now, if it sounds like a lot, these are just a few of the highlights coming from the last session. Corn Hammond and I, if elected, are determined to bring integrity, transparency, and accountability back to our state government. I encourage you to have an open mind as you listen this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Smith.
Well, thank you for everybody being here, and I guess our debate is more interesting than the vice presidential debate that's going on probably right now. So thank you, and thank you to Clean Elections. And I always start by giving thanks to God for another day of freedom in our country where we can have this kind of discourse, as wrong or as lopsided as it may seem. My name is Steve Smith. I do have the honor of serving as your senator. I live in Maricopa, the northern end of our district, with my wife and now 5 children. And I've had the honor of representing you in the Senate. And in the short time I've been there, contrary to what you just heard, I've been named by the largest nonpartisan group in the country as the champion of the taxpayer. Not because that I vote against the taxpayer, but because I vote for the taxpayer, of which I'm one. And I care about how our money is spent. And I care about our state's financial footing, which is why when I got there, our state was billions of dollars in debt, and now we have one of the largest surpluses we've ever had. And we're on one of the best financial footings we've ever had. I look forward to the debate tonight. Thank you all for being here.
Thank you. Mr. Fincham.
Thank you, Madam. My name is Mark Fincham. I am currently Representative Mark Fincham, serving Legislative District 11. I believe in 3 things, basically, and that is and I think that comes from my constituents mostly. The folks that I represent have demanded personal freedom, economic freedom, and a debt-free future. Those are the 3 things that we were asked to focus on over the last 2 years. I'm coming to the end of my freshman term. I've been in office just under 2 years, and I've had the great pleasure of looking at an enormous debt and taking the opportunity to add some fiscal sanity to the management of the state's affairs, pay down debt, increase education spending, and at the same time address the priorities that the taxpayers have been very clear that they want to have addressed. Thank you very much for coming, and I do appreciate the opportunity to talk to you tonight.
Thank you. Ms. Hammond.
Hello, my name is Corin Hammond. I live in Marana with my husband and my young daughter. And I know what it's like to feel like the political system is no longer listening to you. And that's actually why I'm running as a Clean Elections candidate. I'm running because I wanted to step forward and be part of the solution of bringing our lawmakers back to listening to the voters. I want to open up that discourse between the voters and the people who are actually making the laws. I want those laws to work for us. I want those laws to function for us. Some of my main priorities: I'm a young professional and so is my husband. We pay taxes into educating our youth, but why don't we have better, good technical jobs in Southern Arizona for them? Why are they leaving the state? Why are we number last, 50th for per pupil spending in the nation for state funding? Unacceptable. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Leach.
Thank you. My name is Vince Leach. I'm a second semester freshman in the state legislature, serving in the House of Representatives. When I moved here in full-time in 2009, I ran into a state law that prohibited me from investing in the way I wanted to invest, and it also precluded you from investing in the way that you may want to invest. I took that project on in 2009, and for those that say the system isn't working, this person changed the law on April 21st of 2011. The governor signed a bill changing the law so all of us could partake in investing as how we thought. I currently serve on appropriations, the committee that watches your money. Last year we appropriated $9.67 billion of your money. I take that very seriously, and also was named a champion of the taxpayer. I thank you for coming. This is one of the bigger turnouts we've had at Clean Elections in the times that I have been here. I look forward to hearing from your questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, to break the ice, we'll start with a fun, quick lightning round. Candidates, please just answer with one word. Mr. Smith, Pandora or Spotify?
Neither.
Okay. Mr. Fencham, CNN, Fox News, or MSNBC?
Wow.
Thank you. Ms. Hammond, Netflix or Hulu?
Netflix.
Thank you. Mr. Leach, Lumberjack, Sun Devil, or Wildcat?
Wildcat.
Thank you.
Bear down.
Mr. Achu, Snapchat or Instagram?
Neither.
Neither. Thank you. So at this time, we'll begin the portion of the debate where the candidates will answer the same question. 2 minutes per question. The first question starts with Mr. Fencham. What are your plans for fixing Arizona's public school problems?
That's a tall order. Arizona currently, contrary to popular urban myth, Arizona is 12th in the nation for the percentage of our state budget that we spend on education. Now, one of the problems that Arizona has is we only have 13% of our land in private hands paying taxes. So when people look at states like New York, that has 98.7% of their land in private hands, you can see easily why New York is able to pay over $19,000 per pupil per year for public education. The other issue that I think that we have is the disconnect between spending and performance. We have 108 large public schools in the state of Arizona that are an F grade under the current grading system. Now, it's not an easy thing to be an F school. You actually have to be a D school for 3 years consecutively before you're ranked an F. What's interesting is you have, at the top of the scale, $33,000 per pupil. At the bottom of the scale, $6,800 per pupil. Yet they're all an F, and they're all large schools. That tells me that there's a disconnect between performance and spending. And generally, when you see that disconnect, you are getting into an area called leadership. Now, at the other end of the spectrum, we have some very successful schools. Schools like Marana, schools like Oro Valley in the Amphi district, that are graduating 82% of their high school seniors with less money than Tucson Unified School District is receiving for a lesser performance. So in summary, it's not always about the money. Quite often, it's about the leadership.
Thank you. Ms. Hammond.
I respectfully disagree with Representative Fencham. First of all, he used Marana School District as a great example of a succeeding school program. However, Marana is voting to renew an override this November because there's not enough money. I believe that part of our problem is not that Arizona does not have the resources that New York has, because today we are spending 25% less per pupil than we were in 2008. The money could be there, and Arizona has done it. So what I suggest our first step to be, as well, I guess the second step to Proposition 123 for K through 12, is that we raise public teacher salaries. That is essential because right now Arizona is purging public educators at a faster rate than we can train them. And that wouldn't be good enough anyways if we could train them just as fast, because 50% of the professionals leave the profession within the first 5 years. So we really need to pay our teachers a nationally competitive rate, something that will draw our teachers back to the state of Arizona. Additionally, I think that K-12 is really a buzzword. I don't think education is just about K through 12. I have a 2-year-old daughter, and she is learning at a phenomenal rate, which is why I support First Things First. Now, the first year these two fine gentlemen were in office, First Things First funding was on the chopping block. Governor Doug Ducey was threatening to cut funding for under 5-year-old education in order to fund K through 12. How does that sound? Taking money away from education to fund education? I don't think that's a very smart move. Thankfully, the public pushed back on that one. I also believe in JTED programs as a means to educate our children in vocational programs to give them opportunities for jobs
Thank you.
debt-free.
Thank you. Mr. Leach? No, sir, not now. Mr. Leach?
Thank you. Let's start with a couple of numbers. I tend to be on the numbers side. If you look at Joint Legislative Budget Committee, this is available online, and you don't have to fact check me or any of us up here in the numbers that we talk. If you will look over the last 10 years, go to JLBC and you look at the series of funding over the last, I believe it goes back into the 90s, you will see that what the dip in education funding was and where we stand today. This last year, Arizona, all sources of fund, local funding, state funding, and federal funding, we spent $10 billion on just about 1.1 million kids. That's a lot of money. That's a lot of money per classroom. And so just take a look at that and fact check yourself. Secondarily, if you look at the National Assessment of Educational Process, the big test that rates where everybody is, we show up, we're not where we need to be, we are right at the mid-pack. This last report, we are right at the mid-pack. So you can hear and listen to what you want to about how we're 50th or 55th or all that. We are at the mid-pack in performance in schools. If you want to look and make a comparison, look at Utah. Utah spends less per student, and they have better results. Additionally, we have 234, think about this, 234 school districts in the state of Arizona. Utah has 111 for the same number of students. We have an overload of administration. We have, if you will look at our graduation rates, I saw you flipping at them, about 30 seconds? Okay, thank you. If you will look at our graduation rates, we have two groups that perform very well. Could they perform better? Yes. But we have two groups that perform very well. We have one group that graduates at an 85% rate and one group that's
Thank you.
at a...
Thank you. Mr. Achu?
I don't know what stats our Republican opponents are looking at, but there are two numbers I want you to know about. 75% of the people in Arizona think that we're spending too little on education, and virtually every ranking you see in every credible newspaper and report says we are at or near the bottom in funding and results. We are now only retaining 38% of the teachers that graduate from our public universities. We are pushing out of our education system quality educators. They don't want to come here. They don't want to stay here. They are paid 25% below the national average. No, it's not all about money, but if you want quality, you have to pay for it. You have to encourage quality educators to be here. There are also funds that are not coming into school districts that cover capital expenses, buildings and buses. You probably saw in the paper that we now have a 30% failure rate of school buses on safety inspections. It's Russian roulette when parents put their kids on the school bus every morning. I was outside after a school board meeting talking to a 36-year veteran member of the Marana School Board, and he couldn't stop talking about how poorly the state is taking care of public schools in Arizona. There are textbooks that are out of date. There are buildings that are in total disrepair. Some of them had to be shut down because they're not safe. We are not taking care of our most precious resource, and that's our children. Our incumbent Republicans have made education an expense to be minimized rather than an investment that is going to put Arizona in a better position with job opportunities and investment opportunities to help us get quality jobs in the future.
Thank you. Mr. Smith.
Well, when we talk about investment, let's talk about it. So over 50%, over 50% of our state budget, as you heard Representative Leach talk about, $9.6 billion budget is currently allocated towards education. So when you hear this misnomer, well, we're not investing enough. Well, how much is enough? Is it 60? Is it 70? Is it 80%? Keep in mind, we have to run the entirety of the rest of the state with the remaining budget. When we hear about per pupil spending, what they're not telling you is not per pupil per capita spending. And when you look at what we have per capita and what our budget allows us to spend on per student, that's when the numbers drastically change because, well, we don't have the same amount of money as other states. So it's not an apple-to-apple comparison. The fact is over 50% of our budget goes to funding education. We're at an all-time high. When we talk about results, about businesses wanting to come here, well, 3 of the top 10 public schools in the country are right here in Arizona. Not private schools, public schools. And when we talk about, well, how do we get businesses to come here? Well, gee whiz, maybe that's why Arizona was recently ranked #1 by entities like CNN, Forbes, and others for top job growth, for best place to start a business, projected job growth, all of these things. Now, I think the question had to relate to, what do we do to help fix education? I have been a proponent since the first day I stepped from the Capitol for performance pay for teachers. I've been working on it as the first day until last week. It's a very difficult subject. I've worked with every superintendent about it. I think you need to pay teachers more money when they perform. My wife is a teacher. My brother's a teacher in Arizona. My sister's a teacher. I get a lot of unsolicited advice about teaching. And I agree, the quality of the teacher is what we need. You also need more school choice. When you're a parent, you should decide where your child goes to school, not your zip code, not educational bureaucrats. You should. And Arizona is #1 in the nation in school choice.
Thank you. Mr. Finch, your 30-second response. Fincham?
Yes, ma'am. I'll pass at this time. Frankly, I've forgotten what the issue was at the time.
Okay, thank you. We're going to move on to the next candidate question from the audience. We'll start with Ms. Hammond. Climate change is a critical issue in this election. What should Arizona do to decrease our reliance on fossil fuels?
I'm getting my PhD in soil and water chemistry at the University of Arizona, and this is actually my expertise. So it's actually fantastic that Arizona is not in the water crisis that California is going through right now. And the reason why we are not in the situation that California is in is because of very careful planning. Arizona is not self-sustaining in its water resources. We depend on negotiations with other states. We are dependent on water that is not from Arizona land. And we have to stay vigilant on that issue. We cannot let up. We cannot lax on our water law. We have to continue to conserve. We have to continue to allow families to invest in rooftop solar. Everybody wants to have an opportunity to help the environment and save money doing it. It's just a smart move. I think that we need to make options for renters who want to somehow invest in rooftop solar with companies like Walmart that are putting up rooftop solar. Why can't individuals who don't have their own homes invest and buy into that? I think that would be a really great option. I think that continuing to help families and our homeowners invest in gray water options, water reclamation options, is where Arizona needs to head. And we need to be very cautious about our green landscapes and manage those properly and move slowly towards more of the desert scapes that are very traditional in the Tucson area. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Leach.
When it comes to energy, and specifically talking about alternate energy, I'm for all of the above. In fact, if you read the press and if you read the reports, and including the gentleman that talks about nuclear all the time, Bill Gates, he'll say if you really want to clean everything up, you'll go nuclear, because there are no emissions. And if you look at Palo Verde and the performance there that we've had out of that operation. Now, when it comes to the other alternates, if you want to put rooftop solar on, if you want to put a parking lot up that has rooftop solar, if you want to put a windmill up, if you want water as a hydro, I'm fine with that. Go for it. If you can get down, in fact, SRP just bought a contract of solar energy for 5.3 cents per kilowatt hour. If you can get that, then fine. The problem is when you ask the government to fund it. That's where the problem comes in. And we saw what happened in Spain. We saw what's happening in Germany. We saw what just happened in Nevada, where they said it doesn't pay for itself. So if it can survive in the free market, then let's go for it. I also don't want to pay for my neighbor's rooftop solar, which is the current state in Arizona. We, a non-solar customer, have to pay solar people retail rate for their production of solar energy, and I have to pay that. And I'm out of time, so I will go ahead. I'm done.
Thank you. Mr. Atchu.
It's interesting that Mr. Leach doesn't want to help you pay for solar, but he's okay with me putting my tax dollars into parochial school education. So we can do a lot in Arizona with regard to helping the climate. We can, as Corin Hammond mentioned, there are a lot of clean energy sources that could use a lot of incentives. And while the Republican incumbents here may not stand directly in the way of everything, they certainly don't do anything to encourage climate change technology. Arizona should be leading the way in solar. Instead, APS has done everything they can to block individual solar expansion. They've introduced additional charges for homeowners that want to put solar up. And it's about money. They want to privatize all of that so that more money is made and less efficient energy is available for customers, for individual taxpayers. And that's what I referred to earlier when I mentioned somebody being appointed to the Corporation Commission. He had a conflict of interest that was very obvious, but instead of addressing that conflict of interest and helping ratepayers and taxpayers in Arizona, the state legislature, the Republican state legislature, changed the definition of conflict of interest and allowed this individual to be on the Corporation Commission and decide the rates and how taxpayers and ratepayers and energy users are affected by big business. We need to start to look to individuals and make incentives available to those individuals, but also the state needs to invest. The state government does need to invest in solar energy, wind energy. It's the right thing to do. It's a technology that will bring jobs to Arizona and bring industry to Arizona that will move here.
Thank you. Mr. Smith.
Well, when we talk about this conflict of interest bill, and what you had was you had a commissioner whose son was almost like a low-level solar installer for a big solar company, and that commissioner could not vote on any solar matters because they said, well, you have a family member who works there. He wasn't a CEO. He wasn't an executive. He was an installer. And I would think that the solar proponents would want commissioners with family members in the solar industry, but that's neither here nor there. I think the answer to the question is not the Democrat answer. All the way from the top, all the way to the bottom. From Hillary Clinton, who says she wants to put coal workers out of business, to our own CD1, Congressional District 1 Democrat candidate, Tom O'Halloran, who's running in this district, who was spoke before some of the coal folks up north and said the same thing, effectively. He wants to do away with coal in Arizona. Now, never mind that the generating stations yield thousands of jobs, especially to Native Americans. The answer is not a war on coal, okay? And the answer is using what you have, and the answer is using what is best and cost-effective. When we talk about solar, this conversation has shifted to solar. Here's what I've always said about solar for years. I love solar energy. I love it. I love it. But I don't love subsidizing it. okay? And I say if you can compete on the merits with coal, with nuclear, with any of these other options that people want to throw out, with wind, with whatever else, then your merits ought to speak for it. You ever heard of the company Cylindra? Did we forget about that from our vocabulary a few years ago? How when the government tried to pump in massive amounts of money to prop up an industry, it fell flat on its face? So government has a role to be sure, but it is not to artificially inflate something. When the technology, and it's here today as well, but when the technology continues to improve, you incorporate more of it. Absolutely you do. You use all the methods.
Thank you. Mr. Fincham.
Thank you, ma'am. I have the good fortune to serve on the Energy and Natural Resources Committee, so this is something that's up front and center for me in a lot of my daily research. The briefings that we receive, I also serve on that committee with Representative Leach. I, too, am an all-in solutions guy. Look around this building right now. If it wasn't for coal, we'd be in the dark. Now, there may not be many electrical engineers in here, but it's something called base load. Base load does not come from solar. It can't come from wind. It is dependent upon coal or a hydrocarbon fuel of some sort. When electricity is generated, it's got to go somewhere. It doesn't have the luxury of holding in a pen, except in Arizona. Now, I don't know if you've ever heard about molten salt, but basically it's a pile of salt underground that we pump electricity into. It superheats it, and then at night, it creates steam that does what? Drives generators, which create electricity so that we're able to have some of this power. But again, it goes back to base load. That technology is not yet mature enough. So to say that Arizona is not pursuing a path towards a non-hydrocarbon future, I think is actually a misrepresentation of the truth. What we are doing is we are looking at all solutions because this isn't something that you change into overnight. Now, I'd like to go back to the observation that Walmart is installing solar panels in their parking lot. No, ladies and gentlemen, you're installing panels in Walmart's parking lot. You basically paid for those with tax credits, okay? So it is true that we have helped Arizonans make a choice about education and where they're going to spend their money. You know, 100% of Arizonans want choice. 100%. They want to have a choice about where they go shopping. They want to have a choice about where they get a haircut.
Thank you. Ms. Hammond, your 30-second response.
Sorry, I wasn't even expecting that. I think that it's really important that they mentioned how Arizona shouldn't jump into business deals that have not fully come to fruition. Because recently it came out that there was some blood testing technology that came out of Silicon Valley. And it was supposed to allow diabetics to test their blood in a very simple and easy and magical way.
Thank you. Thank you. We're going to move on to the next question, and we're starting with Mr. Leach. Should there be a path to citizenship for immigrants already in the U.S.? Why or why not?
There should be, but it's arduous. It starts by going back to your home country and starting the process over. Very simply, the maps that came out from FAIR last night and the last couple of days put the cost per state. And if you so desire, look at Vince Leach at Twitter. I've got that site up. In Arizona, we spend right about $2.68 billion a year on illegal immigrants in this state. That's across the board within education, within incarceration, health care, government services, and the like. And so to bring them in, and they typically at this point are of the lower education, and they take more dollars out of the economy than what they bring. Now, the argument is, well, nobody else will do those jobs. Well, that's fine. We can have that argument, but we can also bring them across in air-conditioned buses. There is no reason There is no reason why we should have anybody coming across that border dying in the desert to get a job hauling cotton during cotton harvest. They should come across in air-conditioned buses. They should be taken care of, and when that harvest is done, they want to go home. Most of those migrant folks want to go home. I grew up in migrant country in the state of Wisconsin, and they would go home. So there is a path. The illegals know that there's a path, and when we have a federal government that sets up that path, it will run fairly smoothly. We'll put them back, bring them back through the system, and we'll have them identified, and they will have the necessary documentations to become a citizen.
Thank you. Mr. Achu.
It is such a massive, unbelievably expensive proposition to even think about deporting 11 million people. It would cost the United States, just to do this, an estimate of $70 billion. That's not considering the impact to economy that having these people leave the country would cost. They do perform jobs that a lot of Americans wouldn't take. They also, it's a mythology that they don't pay taxes. Every time they go to the grocery store, every time they go to the gas station, every time they shop anywhere, they pay sales tax. They pay real estate tax because most of them pay rent, and that real estate tax is paid through the owner of the property. So they are paying taxes. It's amazing that, just to name one prominent Republican, John McCain, who has shifted his policy on this issue more times than you could possibly count. He has gone from the Gang of Eight to don't forget to build the wall in about 30 seconds flat when it comes time for an election. These people are productive members of society. They're families. They deserve to be recognized as part of the American culture. That's what the United States has always been. They're not criminals and rapists that Donald Trump and a lot of other Republicans are trying to paint them as. They are people who live here, raise families here, and make a living here. And we need to recognize that, treat them with dignity. I believe that they deserve a path to citizenship. There should be a vetting process. We should find out if there are criminals among them who we should take care of and have leave. But for the most part, these are hard-working families, observing the laws, paying taxes, and deserve to be here.
Thank you. Mr. Smith.
Treat them with dignity. How about treating our current laws with dignity, too? I thought we were a nation of laws. Silly me. I thought when we actually, whichever one of us combination actually go to the Capitol or go to Washington, D.C., I thought what we do is important. If it isn't, why are we even here? If we're not going to obey the law, why are we even here? Why even elect us if you're not going to pay attention to the law? The law is what it is. You say they're not criminals. Well, when you break the law, what do you call it? A friend of law enforcement? No, you broke the law. That's what it is. And the path to citizenship is the current path that exists in the law. You want to come to this country, that's how you do it. You want to come to one of our houses, I hope you call or you knock on their front door. You don't jump over the backyard fence and break through their back door. That's not how you enter somebody's house. This country is our home. We have laws on how to get here. And I'm sick and tired about hearing things like, oh, well, we're a nation of immigrants. That's right. We're a nation of, the magical word, legal immigrants. You ever hear that thing called Ellis Island when people will go there legally? Yes? And they entered the country legally? That's what we're talking about. Now, I've been called Arizona's toughest legislator on the border. I am. I have never, ever once blamed the illegal immigrant. Never once. If I lived where they lived and all I had to do was go a few miles north and I almost got everything I ever wanted, the gold-plated education system, the gold-plated healthcare system, the social service, freedom, everything I ever wanted, I would probably do it too. I've never faulted them. The whole world wants to come to our country. Why? We're the greatest country in the world. I fault our government for allowing it to happen. And you want to talk about breaking up families, we do this every day in the judicial system. You rob a bank, if I rob a bank, I go to jail. My family's broken up. That's what it is. Obey the law.
Thank you. Mr. Fincham.
To summarize the question again, why don't we have an immigration or a path to immigration? My response to that is we do, and that's frankly a federal issue. The feds have basically told us they own it. Great. Own it. Do something about it. You've turned it into a circus. The state of Arizona tried to resolve some of that because I don't know if anybody's ever taken a trip down to Yuma, but I urge you to go down to the salad bowl of the United States. If I was in the Midwest is the breadbasket, Yuma is the salad bowl. We have people who wait in line from 5 o'clock in the morning until daybreak to get across a border every single day. They know the border crossing people by name, and the border crossing people know them by name. They come over, they work their tails off for 10 hours, they expect cash payment at the end of the week. They don't want to participate in our insane, what they call insane social service system. They just want to be paid, and then they want to go home to their families. Now, what I find interesting is nobody's talking about the idea that Ford has just announced 1.2 million jobs that are going to be built down in Mexico. What attracts people? Jobs. So now that Mexico is getting its act together and helping business start business in Mexico, I expect you to see a significant exodus of the folks that are here illegally. They've broken our laws, and they are going home. Why? They're going home to work. Now, one of the things that I want to insert in here is I have a son-in-law who has gone through the path to citizenship, been waiting 5 years to become a U.S. citizen, has studied, has worked hard. It's going to mean something to him. He didn't just walk across the border. He went through the process. He said it's hard, it's not easy, but it's worth something.
Thank you. Ms. Hammond.
The American dream is our brand. That is the brand of the United States of America, and that is what keeps our currency going, is that people want to come here and they know that there is an opportunity to become an American at some point. Now, I agree that, I would prefer that they do it legally. I would prefer that people come over with documentation. In the case of international immigrants who come over without documentation, quite frankly, we know historically that certain industries recruit them, ask for them to come here. So that's capitalism. As far as keeping families together, though, that is where we talk about the path to citizenship. And in the state of Arizona, I do believe that we should offer opportunities for people to stay together with their families when they have immediate family members living in the United States as citizens.
Thank you. Mr. Leach, your 30-second response.
Thank you. Thank you very much. The American dream is based on something, and it's based on the Constitution of the United States that was put together by the founders. And so if we don't follow the Constitution, and I hear time and time and time again about it's going to cost too much, it's too what, we hear that not only about immigration, we hear it about other issues that seemingly want to get around the rule of law. It's going to cost too much, and I would simply ask you, what is the cost of the Constitution? What is the cost of the Constitution if we throw it away?
Thank you. Our last question for this part of the debate comes from the audience, asking you to just answer with one word only. Do you support or oppose Proposition 205? Mr. Achu.
Support.
Mr. Smith?
Oppose.
Mr. Fincham?
Oppose.
Ms. Hammond?
Support.
Mr. Leach?
Oppose.
Thank you. So now we'll transition to the part of the debate where candidates will receive a separate question with 1 minute to respond. Remember, you may still submit questions via the note cards and direct them to specific candidates. The first question is for Mr. Leach. Mr. Leach, an audience member suggests that you stated you ran for a personal reason of investments. Are you only serving for your own personal gains?
So do you want the, I get a minute, right?
1 minute.
So when I came here, I was ready to be in the hot tub clan, where you go to the hot tub once a day and you enjoy retirement. And so this opportunity, The law had been in place for 10 years, and I'm a political science major. It gave me an opportunity to become involved in the community. By the time I got the bill done, I was also working on education programs. I was working at the local county on taxing programs. I was working at the Corporation Commission on issues there. I was working on several campaigns. And so very simply, while it started out as a one-person, one-issue campaign, today it's got more issues and more things on my plate than I sometimes seemingly can handle, but I would be pleased to talk with that person one-on-one and share with all the things that I'm involved in today.
Thank you. Ms. Hammond, how will you pay for the teacher salary increases and First Things First funding?
So right now we're actually already covering First Things First funding. That was actually not dropped from the table. Public opinion forced Governor Doug Ducey to back off of that funding transfer. As for supporting an increase in teacher salaries, we're actually sitting on about $1 billion surplus. And why are we not using that funding towards our public education while we're ranked so poorly? Now, that funding is our surplus and our rainy day fund, but I think this is definitely call for rainy day funds. Thank you.
Thank you. Question for Mr. Fincham. What is your opinion on private prisons? Are they superior to our state prisons?
I'm not sure. It depends on how you measure it. Are you talking about efficiency for taxpayer dollars? Are you talking about efficiency for reducing recidivism? So I'm not sure I know how to get at the heart of what the question is, but I will say this: anytime government does something, it is more inefficient than when the private sector does. Now, there are some people who would say, well, you're going to spend money and somebody's going to make a profit. Well, it's interesting that even with a profit, a public sector entity generally comes in below what it costs the government to run an operation. Now, we buy road service repairs from contractors. We have state buildings that are built by contractors. Just about everything that the state of Arizona does, a private sector engages in a contract with the state of Arizona. That even the security at the House of Representatives.
Thank you. Mr. Smith, do you support Donald Trump's call to restrict Muslim immigration on the basis of the threat that they represent? Why or why not?
I absolutely support the further vetting from anybody from any terrorist nation. And if the predominantly amount of terrorism is happening in Muslim nations, well, then I guess the predominantly amount of vetting is going to happen to people that live in those countries. I don't care if it's from Russia, though. I don't care if it's from Saudi Arabia. I don't care where it's from. If you are from a state-sponsored country, you ought to be vetted. Look what happened in San Bernardino. Didn't work with that vetting. Look what happened in Paris. Wasn't properly vetted. And we just recently found out that the Obama administration's vetting process was, we'll take your word for it. We'll just interview you. We'll just interview you. Because when they go back to try to find these people, if you say, my name is XYZ and I live on 123 Dunbar Street in Syria, who you really think the United States government is sending in a task force in the middle of war-torn Syria to find out if that guy's story held water? Of course not. A sane nation and a smart nation vets threats. If Germany was piping in German citizens during World War II, I would have vetted them the same.
Thank you. Question for Mr. Achu. What is your opinion on whether the 17th Amendment, U.S. senators being elected by the people, should be revoked to have the state legislature appoint the U.S. senators, as was the law until 1913?
I believe that all government officials that represent the voters be elected. I'm not in favor of anybody being appointed to legislative positions, regardless if that's state or federal. I do want to make a mention, though, that our Republican incumbents talk about the law and the Constitution, and when it came to Proposition 301, They forgot about following the law. They forgot about the state constitution, and they ignored the decision of the courts of Arizona up to and including the state Supreme Court, and forced on Arizona Proposition 123, which has resulted in a bad deal for all of us, for the schools, for the students, for the teachers, and for the parents.
Thank you. Next question for Mr. Leach. You quote the U.S. Constitution. As such, do you believe in separation of church and state? Why or why not?
It's in the Constitution. I mean, where's my copy? Right here. I mean, I'm not going to read it to you. I'm sure you can all reach in your own pocket and get out your pocket Constitution and read it. I'm not sure, and if the person that wrote that question doesn't have a copy, please see me afterwards, and I'll make sure that you have a copy of it so that you can go forward. What we're seeing now in today's environment is that the church is being pushed into four walls like we're sitting in now, and you can't carry your religion out into the parking lot, out into the street, or, God forbid, into your workplace. You must make a cake for somebody that goes against your religious beliefs. That is wrong. That is wrong. A company in Oregon, the hotbed of liberalism, pushed somebody out of business because they didn't want to make a cake because it went against their religious beliefs.
Thank you. Next question for Ms. Hammond. What is your view of the SNAP food stamp program?
I think that federal funds coming to the state of Arizona are essential to helping develop a strong workforce in our state. I believe that any opportunity the state of Arizona has to bring our federal tax dollars back to the state of Arizona is an opportunity that we have to jump on, which is why I'm a huge proponent of look, I'm forgetting. Oh my goodness. Ralph. Kids Care. That's why I'm a huge, I could have asked you. That is why, and here is my big take-home point. It's essential that our state legislature voted for Kids Care because it was bringing our tax dollars back to the state of Arizona to help our children of the working poor, which is essential to growing Arizona's state economy. We cannot turn our backs on those children who are falling behind because they are critical to growing our economy and building our workforce.
Thank you. Question for Mr. Fincham. What is your position that laws passed by the federal government is superseded by state laws?
Now that is a sticky question. So when we read the Constitution of the United States, the Constitution has limited powers on the federal government. And as long as the federal government, the Supremacy Clause, I think, is probably what the individual is asking about. And thank you for the question, because the Supremacy Clause applies primarily to laws of the federal government in pursuance of the Constitution, meaning that the federal law is required to be a legitimate law, a legitimate statute, is required to support the terms and conditions of the contract. I'm glad Mr. Leach has got a copy of the contract here because that is a contract between the people, the state, and the federal government. Well, you've got one too. Great. That's a Constitution crowd. What can I say? So when the federal government comes into the state of Arizona and tries...
Thank you. Mr. Smith, next question. The majority of Arizona's citizens, Republican and Democrat and Independent, believe we must spend more on public education. Are you defying them? If so, why?
No, we are not defying them. Matter of fact, we are adhering to their will, as I mentioned in some of my earlier comments. Again, over 50% of our state budget goes towards education. We're at all-time record funding for education. So when you look at that, it's, again, my simple question is, if you want more, how much is more? Well, Prop 123, that I guess my opponent didn't support, is a way for more. So when your budget is already at 50% plus for K-12, and you have to run the rest of the state, healthcare, law enforcement, right? And you have to run the rest of the state. Prop 123 came in and says, we're going to take the state land trust that is set up to deliver dollars to education, that's what it's there for, and we're going to provide more of that into K-12 to the tune of $3.5 billion over the next 10 years without raising one penny of tax. So not only are we at all-time funding, not only is half of our budget going to education, but with the Prop 123, you have an infusion of another $3.5 billion into education. How much more do you want is what I would ask that person.
Thank you.
More.
Mr. Achu, what is your position toward gun laws and the Second Amendment to the United States?
I support the Second Amendment of the United States. I do believe, though, that we do need to take a look at what's going on, the violence that we see almost every day in the streets of America, and recognize that, as I learned in school, with rights come responsibilities. I see that we need to have background checks, we need to close the gun hole loophole, and take some sensible steps toward abating the infusion of every kind of gun imaginable on the streets of our cities. But I want to go back to what Senator Smith just said, because it's not true. Proposition 123 brought no new money to our schools. It took money that already was in trust, that was earmarked for our schools. It's like me walking up to you, taking $100 out of your wallet, giving you back $50, and saying, here's new money, and oh, by the way, I took it out of your bank account to get it. The truth is, the voters of Arizona have told these people how much to spend.
Thank you. Thank you. Mr. Leach, what is your opinion about whether dark money drowns out the voices of Arizona voters? Is it a corruption of democracy?
I think the courts have decided that. If we're talking about Citizens United, the courts have decided that. And so the courts have said that you have a right to free speech. And we had the right for free speech for years and years and years on the organized labor side. And when business wanted to do it and and moved forward with Citizens United, all of a sudden it became a bad thing, and this magical word popped up that said dark money. What's interesting is we have two opponents sitting up here at the stage tonight that just clamor against dark money. And if you look at it, all of their endorsements, some of their endorsements from outside groups, those that aren't Democrats that have endorsed them, are all dark money folks. But you don't hear that. You don't hear them rail against that. You hear them rail against the three Republicans that are taking dark money.
Thank you. Ms. Hammond, how can you make a difference in the House when it's a Republican majority and you are one of 30 members?
When you vote for a Democrat right now in this election for Legislative District 11, what that does is it provides an additional number for the more moderate side in the Arizona State Legislature. I'm a professional. I know how to work together. I know how to reach across the aisle, and I know how to compromise to find solutions. Does that mean I'm going to be friends with everybody? No, it doesn't. But I will do my job, and I will make sure that I will listen to the voters. Now, I am a clean elections candidate, and I don't have any dark money. I haven't accepted any. So I just want to clarify that. So when I represent you in the State House of Representatives, I will be speaking for your voice. I will be speaking for your concerns. I have not been bought. I cannot be bought. I'm used to a graduate student stipend.
Thank you. Mr. Fencham, now that the state has solved their financial problems, do you support resuming the full road funds to cities and counties? Why or why not?
Well, first of all, I would say that we have not solved our problems. A few years ago, we did a tricky little accounting maneuver, I shouldn't say we, the prior administration, where it mortgaged the state businesses. So we are paying $1 million a day in taxpayer funds, your taxes, for interest because somebody wasn't paying attention to the purse. They had the idea that, oh, we got this rainy day fund, we're going to go spend that. and we've got these other funds, we're going to go spend that. We're going to increase these programs because we want to pander to everybody in the world. At the end of the day, the state of Arizona is not debt-free. We are working ourselves out of rollovers to, by the way, education. We owe $900 million from prior administrations to public education. That is something that, as we have a surplus, we need to resolve before we take on more and more and more. So, as far as the HERF funds go, I ran a bill 2 years ago that would require the use of HERF funds.
Thank you. Mr. Smith, how would you measure teacher performance?
Yeah, great question. So I first sat down with Superintendent Huppenthal, who was the previous superintendent, and then currently our existing superintendent, and a lot of educators. And here's the first thing I did. I said, too many times people like us, when they get elected, they said, I'm going to do this, and they never talk to the people that bill's affecting. And so what I did, by way of the superintendents, by way of their principals, I sent an email to every single teacher in the state. And I asked them, I said, if you were to be judged on how would you want to be scored? And you know what happened? I collected all the emails, printed them, and we had 500 pages of email responses. And that's what I did. We graphed it all. We looked at the top 5, 6 things that they all seem to care about the most. Of course, everybody's going to have different answers, but there's about 4 or 5 or 6 things that rose to the top with every teacher, and that's how we went down that road. And that's the same model that the Governor Brewer instituted for some of the performance pay models that we see that are on the books today.
Thank you. Mr. Achu, Arizona State and public schools have fallen steadily over the last 8 years or so, and Proposition 123 was only the first step. What do you propose and support as the next steps?
So, the truth of this is that the state has taken its revenue source and given it away. Over 90% of the lost revenue to this state in the form of income tax has gone out in ideological tax cuts to high-end individuals and corporations. Every state in the union has over 50% of its budget allocated to education, to public education. So that's not an excuse. It's the way we use our tax revenues that we can fund public education to the way the voters established in Proposition 301. We need to take a look at those tax cuts that are going out that are guaranteed without any look at if they're efficient. Right now, the state has over $12 billion in tax loopholes and tax incentives that the Republican legislature has not allowed to even be audited to see if it's effective.
Thank you. Mr. Leach, what is your position on Arizona resolution in support of an amendment to the U.S. Constitution that says corporations are not people and money is not speech?
Repeat that again, please.
What is your position on an Arizona resolution in support of an amendment to the U.S. Constitution that says corporations are not people and money is not speech?
Well, money is a form of speech. That has been decided. I just answered that in the last question. The courts have already said that money is a form of speech. On the flip side, if you can burn a flag and that's free speech, how can money not be considered speech? So, I'm in favor of, and corporations are not people. I'm not even sure where that's coming from.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Hammond, what will you do to protect women's health care choices?
So I do support a woman to make her own health care decisions. I believe that is the most ultimate form of personal freedom, to make decisions for your own body. I guess in terms of what I would do to protect that right, I guess I would make sure that physicians in the state of Arizona are not handicapped by the law, to prevent them from helping women. follow their own health care decisions. I believe that women should have the right to help decide how they form their family and when they have their family and how that affects their career. And I do think that's essential to our rights as Americans.
Thank you. Mr. Fincham, a similar question. What is your opinion about a woman's right to make all of her own health care choices?
I support a woman's right to make health care choices. What I do not support is the ending of a life that under our Constitution in the preamble is protected. If you read the Constitution, it says we secure these rights for ourselves and our posterity. Now, I can't help the fact that there are justices on the Supreme Court that have decided that they want to ignore that word because of the altar of convenience. At the end of the day, I don't support the removal of a child in pieces from a woman's body. Now, if we're talking about women's health care, yes, I think that she absolutely has the opportunity to make decisions about her health care. That also includes not getting pregnant. She might want to think about her behaviors before she gets pregnant.
Thank you.
Just
Next
touched a nerve
question
there.
for Mr. Smith. Please do not interrupt the debate. We're going to continue on. Mr. Smith, after 40
come on
years
now.
of tax cuts,
I can't hear you, ma'am. I'm sorry.
Mr. Smith, we will stop the debate. We have a process that we use, so please let me ask the questions that the audience has asked. Mr. Smith, after 40 years of tax cuts in Arizona to favored businesses, when do you propose we stop favoring them over the workers?
Yeah, so here's this magical tax cut question. I am what we call a broad-based, free market, fair kind of person. It's that pretty simple to me. What does that mean? Well, that means what's good for the goose ought to be good for the gander. And if you are going to institute a policy, whether it's a tax credit, whether it's a tax cut, whether it's this law or that law, it ought to be uniform to everybody. Now, what we see over the years, you have targeted tax incentives. We had this thing in Arizona with the film industry a few years ago that says, well, that was a targeted incentive that says, for this little industry, we want to give extra money to. It doesn't matter if you're not in the film industry, you're not going to get that money. You're not going to see that tax break. If you hire employees, you won't get that same benefit. Whereas I like to say, no, let's have broad-based tax reform. And that's what we did in the first piece of legislation I worked on, what was called the Jobs Bill. That equal opportunity tax breaks for every business that invests in their infrastructure.
Thank you. Mr. Achu, this audience member asks, why is Arizona behind other states in its capacity to raise taxes, and what will you do?
Well, so I want to take a look at a form of concentrated taxes, and that is the state has pushed down, instead of taking care of its responsibility and paying its bills, has pushed down the tax burden onto counties. And that's, some of that's about schools, some of that's about roads. And what's that done is caused counties to raise the sales tax. The sales tax now in Arizona, across Arizona, has us as the third highest sales tax state in the country. Sales tax falls most heavily on working families and on local businesses. It's a job killer all the way around. Furthermore, the growth that they were talking about being projected in Arizona was a study done in 2013, and what their tax policies have produced is a third world economy. We're growing jobs that are paying $7 and $8 an hour. Where are the quality jobs that all these corporate tax cuts were supposed to bring?
Thank you. Mr. Leach, proper use of state land trust is an issue in Arizona. What do you believe the legislator can do to get U.S. government to release federal land they control back to the states?
So I want you to read that again, because you put two different issues in there, and I want to make sure that everybody understands.
The question is asked exactly this way from the audience.
Thank you.
Proper use of state land trust is an issue.
Let me interrupt you. State lands. Now go forward.
In Arizona. What do you believe the legislature can do to get U.S. government to release federal land they control back to the state?
So, in the state land situation, that was set up within the Enabling Act as the lands within that the federal government holds. The state lands has, we've only sold 10% of our state lands at this particular point. And we do have leasing arrangements. Mark and I were at a function last week, Sierra Tucson. Many of you may know of that. That's on leased land. They pay a lease. That's a 40. So we're producing income off of that land. Regarding federal land, we have, and Mark has been really involved in this, the American Lands Council, to continue to push to have the feds give the land back that they had taken care of in enabling that, and we're supposed to turn back. That goes to the problem that we've talked about the ability to tax, the ability to grow. We're only 18% privately held in the state of Arizona, with the rest of the land either being in state or in federal hands, and that limits us.
Thank you. Ms. Hammond, now that No Child Left Behind is no longer in place, the Every Child Succeeds Act, ESSA, is now in place. What do you want to see Arizona do with the power granted back to the states?
So what I believe is important for Americans is that we have the opportunity to progress and be successful even if we move from state to state. So what I do believe is essential is that if a child finishes the 3rd grade in California and their parents are lucky enough to move to Arizona, I think that child should be able to move very seamlessly into the next grade. So what's essential here is that we do adhere to some form of federal requirements for each grade. Now, how we implement those, I think, should be left to the school districts, to the teachers. But for instance, I learned long division in the 4th grade. That was something that every 4th grader at the time learned. And I think that that's very important for us to adhere to those federal requirements for each grade to make sure that each child learns what they need to.
Thank you. Mr. Fitchum, what are your thoughts on the gun show loophole, which enables firearms to be sold at gun shows without the seller having to conduct a background check on the purchaser?
I think what the question is addressing is private sales, one person to another. I don't attend gun shows, so I'm not really sure what they have there. But let's take it out of the context of the gun show for a moment and just one neighbor to another. You are going to essentially sell your firearm to your neighbor. Are you required to do a background check? No. Now, if you are a dealer at a gun show, that part of the law I'm very aware of. You absolutely have to do a background check. Now, I guess the question becomes, just how far do you want the federal government to intrude in your personal affairs? Do you want the federal government to begin doing background checks on the transfer of an automobile? That's a 3,700-pound missile. Do you want to have the federal government get in your kitchen about everything that you will be selling to your neighbors?
Thank you. Mr. Smith, what do you believe the state of Arizona should do regarding taxes on individuals?
Well, as a free market capitalist, taxes should always be lowered when you can. I mean, the simple economics is this: when you have more of your own money, you're going to put it where it's best. Again, this goes back to the education question. Who is going to spend money better in your best interest? You or the federal government or your state government or your county or whoever it is? If I own more of my money, I think I got a better idea of what I wanted to do with it and where I want to put it and what's important to me, rather than, again, bureaucrats on the city, state, county, or federal level. Of course we all have to pay taxes, of course we do, but to what extent? If you're an average earner in the country, you're probably at about near a 30% tax bracket. You add in the sales tax Mr. Chu mentioned, you're at about 40% now. Now you add up your property, you add up this, the death tax, you're paying about 50% of your take home in taxes. Why? I'm always for lower taxes.
Thank you. Mr. Achu, What are your thoughts regarding amendments to Arizona's Constitution to change the public employees retirement system, which is currently facing unfunded liability issues?
Retirement programs get very tricky. They involve a lot of investments in funds, and they need to be looked at very carefully. What I'm not in favor of is first responders, police, firemen, getting pats on the back and then being told they're the blame for budget overruns and we're going to have to take back the promise of your retirement. I'm not in favor of doing that. We owe them what we promised them, and we should keep that promise. I'd also like to say that not every private gun sale is to your neighbor. To the extent that the government can keep those guns from getting in the hands of terrorists or people on watch lists, I'm all in favor of it.
Thank you. Mr. Leach, 1 in 4 kids in Arizona are considered food insecure. What are your plans to alleviate hunger in our state and our district?
Jobs. And we've been beating around, we've gone around this issue several ways, and we haven't really brought up what we have here in Arizona. We've talked about land and getting more land in private hands and put it into production. We have got some tremendous resources here in the state of Arizona. If you go in the northern part of Arizona, you know, we burn every year 317,000 acres of trees. Why don't we harvest them? Why don't we put them into biomass for alternate fuel? We could do that. We could, at the same time, increase our water supply. We have natural resources. Why don't we open Resolution? Why don't we open Rosemount? Why don't we use the product that we are given responsibly? There are ways to responsibly do this. Why are we throwing roadblocks in? If you want to grow the economy, if you want to put people to work, if you want to put food on the table, use the resources given to you.
Thank you. Ms. Hammond, what are your thoughts about requiring employers to pay both men and women the same wages for doing the same job?
I am absolutely a supporter for equal pay for equal work. As the woman up here at this table, I can tell you that I am a huge supporter of that policy. I would like to mention that in terms of managing our natural resources, while I do support what Representative Leach said about using our resources, using our mining companies, I don't think that he should have put that in the same sentence as restoring our water resources, because as we all know, mining actually does use a lot of water. Now, we are a mining state. We do need to manage our mining economy, but if we're talking about water conservation, increasing mining, and that don't really go together. So it's something that we would actually have to manage side by side.
Thank you. Mr. Fincham, in the event of a budget shortfall, what is your philosophy and approach?
Address the urgent issue. We actually had a budget shortfall, and one of the things that happened, see, what I don't think people really take time to think about, we only collect the tax that our constituents permit. The state collects the tax that our constituents permit. In fact, I believe it was the Citizens Initiative that now requires a supermajority for us to pass a new tax, or, and this is through the legislature, or to increase a tax. So we now have to go back to the voters and ask, can we get an increase in tax? Or the voters can pass an initiative to do that. So like any business, which government frankly is a quasi-business, you have to adjust to the reality of what you have to spend. Now, at the end of the day, we're not like the federal government. We don't get to go out and print our own money. The best strategy that we've got is that when we do have a surplus, we protect that surplus for a rainy day.
Thank you. Mr. Smith, what is your view of the American dream, and what should the role of government in helping individuals achieve that dream?
The American dream is different for everybody. Okay, some people want certain things in life. Other people measure it by a certain amount of wealth that they attain. Some people measure it by their family and their freedoms. People measure it by a lot of different things. What I think the American dream is, the beautiful thing about our founding fathers was they established a form of government that allows you to pursue whatever that path is. And if your path is motivated by financial gain, you have every right, everybody in this room has every right to go and further their education or to go get the job of their dreams. Everybody's got the right. If your dream is to, have your family and multiply and right, and to live out in the middle of nowhere in a farm, and because that's your dream, then you can do that too. And so I think the dream is different for everybody. My dream is to, and my version of the dream is, people should be able to pursue whatever that dream is as unencumbered by the federal or state government as much as possible. They ought to be able to go and do and worship and everything that they want to do without government interference. That's what I think it is.
Thank you. Mr. Achu, what is your position on requiring police officers to wear body cameras?
I am in favor of it. I think that we've seen so many incidents that both support and don't support police action. It's become such a divisive issue across America, and the more information we have, the better. I do, however, think that we need to invest more in training and education. We need to have our police officers be able to address situations without use of deadly force. We need to train them to understand when there's a mental issue involved, and there's a time where backing away might be the best option, where bringing somebody else on board, a negotiator, to talk to people, de-escalating the situation might be the best option. I don't see that happening as much as could be done.
Thank you. We're going to start the closing statements now. So we're going to start with Mr. Leach. 1 minute for your closing statement.
Thank you. Thank you to Clean Elections. Thank you for everybody that came. And I saw the hands going up. I know there were a lot of questions we probably didn't get to. There are a lot of things here that need to be fact-checked. First of all, we do not have a $1 billion surplus. There is no way that the Democrats and the liberal Republicans would let us get out of Phoenix with a $1 billion surplus. I serve on appropriations. I know that. State clean elections money is dark money. Anybody running state clean elections does not know where that money comes from. Any donor to state lands. Prop 301, we were in the process, the legislature was in the process of having another day in court. The Supreme Court said nothing on this issue. Police and firemen, PSPRS, were part of the big change that we had this year. They led the charge. We took nothing from them. They brought the program. So what I'm saying is you have to be part of the system. You can't show up at a debate and say things that just aren't so.
Ms. Hammond.
My name is Corin Hammond, and I'm running for the Arizona State House of Representatives. I want to serve you, the voters, in the state legislature. I want to listen to you. I have not been bought by dark money, and I have been a clean elections candidate. I want to bring the power back to the voters and take it away from the hands of special interest groups that don't even reside in the state of Arizona. We only need 6 seats in the State House of Representatives to have an even split, and that's what I can promise you. If you vote for me, I will help contribute towards that even split, and I will fight for you. I will fight for public education, which is proven to reduce crime rates in our communities. It is an investment in reducing the strain on our tax revenue structure, and it builds a qualified workforce that will bring better jobs and entrepreneurship down here in southern Arizona, because Phoenix is not Arizona. Arizona is all over the place, and I want to advocate for you.
Thank you. Mr. Fincham.
Thank you, ma'am. I am Mark Fincham. I am currently your representative. I've had the pleasure of serving you, and I'd like to serve you again. And I will restate my case. I ran on a platform before, and I'm running on it again, of personal freedom, economic freedom, and a debt-free future. This state has got serious economic problems, and those problems go all the way back to 1912, when we were deprived of the obvious need for us to be able to use our resources, use our lands, to fund our state. We are a second-class state when compared to other states, and it's time that that comes to an end. I support local control. That means local spending. The state of Arizona's legislature provides funding. It's the decisions that are made locally on spending that give you the outcome you have. I believe in measured results, and I want to see government operate efficiently as it can, because every single dollar you give us deserves respect.
Thank you. Mr. Smith.
Well, thank you again, and I encourage everybody, please watch this, and please continue to vote for Vince Leach and Mark Fincham. They're doing a great job in the House, and of course, I would humbly ask for your vote as well. I have the honor of serving as the chairman of the Public Safety and Military Committee in the Senate, so everything in the state that falls under that jurisdiction, it's my honor to help with. But listen, your choice is a clear one. It's just that simple. And my opponent, I mean, he's very well-intentioned. He's got his beliefs and I got mine, but you have to decide what's best for you. And you either want more government intervention and responsibility, or you want less. I want less. You either want more taxes by things like Medicaid expansion, things like that, or you want less, like I do. You either want more drugs on the street, my opponent supports Prop 205, or you want less, I oppose Prop 205, legalizing marijuana. You either want more abortions or you want less. You want more school choice, which is I want, or you want less. So it just comes down to, what do you want? What do you want? And my record is pretty clear. You don't have to listen to what I say. You can look at my record. You can look at my voting record. And so I just humbly ask for your support. If you match with that, I ask for your support.
Thank you. Mr. Achu.
Thank you. This election does have pretty clear choices. I agree with Mr. Smith. He's got a record to run on, and we're seeing a third country economy as a result of his policies. This election is a decision about families and children and what's right for those families and children. Back in the 40s and 50s, our parents and grandparents made a decision to invest in the United States of America. They built roads, they built power grids. They set up an education system that was as free as possible and had high quality opportunity for as many as possible. Now's the time to make a decision. Corin Hammond and I have a view of Arizona, a vision of Arizona that's about innovation, prosperity, and opportunity. If you agree with that vision, then help us get elected. Because if we do get elected, when we're in Phoenix representing you, you can believe we will vote for you.
Thank you. To our candidates, we thank you so much for participating in this forum. And to our audience members, we thank you for taking the time to come and inform yourselves before voting. We encourage you to visit www.azcleanelections.gov, where you can find information on the upcoming elections, as well as download the Clean Elections app. You can also learn about the candidates running for office. A link to the video of this debate, as well as other Clean Elections debates, will be posted on that site within 72 hours of the scheduled debate. Please don't forget to fill out the debate evaluation form that you received when you entered and return it to our volunteer. Your feedback is very important to the Commission and will improve future debates. Thank you all for coming tonight, and you are welcome to stay and speak directly with the candidates.